The private jet touched down earlier than expected. Isabella Carter, one of the wealthiest women on the East Coast, had cut her trip short by 2 days. For weeks, she had been locked in boardrooms, striking deals, chasing numbers. But tonight, she wanted only one thing to surprise her daughter. The black Bentley carried her through the rain-slick Manhattan streets. The mansion loomed ahead, its windows glowing faintly against the storm. Isabella's pulse quickened. She imagined her little girl's face lighting up when she saw her mother back early. But when she pushed the front door open, the house was not silent. She froze at the sound of soft laughter echoing down the hallway. She stepped lightly across the marble floor, heels clicking. The sound led her upstairs to Emily's room. The door stood ajar, warm light spilling into the corridor. Isabella's hand tightened around her handbag strap as she leaned closer, and then she stopped cold. Inside the room, a tall black man sat on the edge of her daughter's bed. Emily, only 5 years old, curled in his lap, her tiny hands gripping his shirt. He held her with careful gentleness, rocking her slightly. His deep voice murmured words Isabella couldn't quite catch. Her chest seized. A stranger, holding her child. "Who the hell are you?" Isabella's voice sliced through the room like glass. The man's head jerked up. Emily startled, her small arms tightening around him. "Mommy," the girl cried. Isabella stormed inside, her eyes blazing. She reached for her daughter, but Emily clung tighter to the man's chest. Panic surged through Isabella's veins. "Put her down," she snapped. "Security." Heavy footsteps thundered down the hall. 2 guards burst into the room, hands instinctively moving to their weapons. The stranger raised his hands instantly, his voice calm despite the chaos. "Wait, please. I'm not here to hurt her." Emily's eyes filled with tears. "Don't take him away, Mommy, please don't." The words cut Isabella deeper than she expected. She turned in shock, staring at her daughter. "What did you say?" Emily's lip trembled. "Don't take Marcus away. He keeps me safe." Marcus. The name meant nothing to Isabella. Her fury surged hotter. "You dare touch my daughter? Who let you into this house?" The guard stepped forward, ready to seize him, but a voice broke through the tension. "Madam Carter, please wait." Davis, her longtime personal assistant, appeared breathless in the doorway. His hands were raised in urgency. "He's not an intruder. I hired him while you were away." Isabella turned on him, her anger shifting. "You what?" Davis swallowed. "Emily wouldn't eat. She wouldn't sleep. She cried every night. I thought she needed more than staff bustling around. Marcus came highly recommended. He's been here 3 weeks. 3 weeks. The ground tilted beneath Isabella's feet. 3 weeks, and she had no idea. Her daughter still clung to him, refusing to let go. The man, Marcus, looked at Isabella with steady eyes, not challenging, but not apologizing either. "I was here to help her," he said simply. Isabella's breath came fast. The humiliation stung. She had built empires, controlled billion-dollar mergers, but in her own home, her daughter found comfort in the arms of a stranger. She turned sharply to the guards. "Get him out." Emily screamed. The sound was raw, piercing, shattering against the walls. "No, Mommy, no, don't take him away." The guards hesitated, looking at Davis. He gave the smallest shake of his head. Isabella felt the room spin, the betrayal in her daughter's eyes, the ache in her chest, and the storm outside hammering harder against the windows. She had come home early to surprise her little girl. Instead, she had walked into a nightmare. The storm rolled on through the night, shaking the mansion's windows. Isabella barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, the image returned, her daughter curled in the arms of a stranger, whispering, "Don't take him away." By morning, the tension in the house was palpable. The staff moved quietly, eyes lowered. Even the guards seemed uneasy. Isabella dressed in silence, pulling on a crisp navy suit, her movements sharp and mechanical. When she came down to breakfast, she froze again. At the long mahogany table sat Emily, her small legs swinging beneath the chair. In front of her, a bowl of oatmeal had gone cold many times before. But today, Emily ate with laughter bubbling out between spoonfuls. Marcus sat across from her, leaning forward, his deep voice light with play. "Spaceship broccoli incoming. 3, 2, 1. Landing right on planet Emily. The little girl giggled, opening her mouth wide as he swooped the spoon toward her lips. She clapped her hands, delighted oatmeal smearing across her cheek. Isabella stood in the doorway, stunned. Her daughter had refused food for weeks. She remembered the doctor's warnings, the endless coaxing by nannies who failed. Yet here was this man making her eat as if it were the easiest thing in the world. Emily noticed her at last. "Mommy, look." Marcus made breakfast. Fun, Isabella forced a smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. She walked forward stiffly. "That's wonderful, sweetheart." Her gaze slid to Marcus, sharp as a blade. He didn't flinch. The pattern repeated throughout the day. At noon, Isabella found them in the sunroom. Emily sat cross-legged on the rug coloring. Marcus knelt beside her, sketching alongside. Their papers scattered across the floor, rocket stars, whole galaxies scribbled in crayon. Emily's voice was hushed but happy. "See, Mommy, Marcus says the dark is just space waiting for stars." That night, Isabella lingered by her daughter's door. Inside, the lamp glowed low. Emily lay curled under the blanket, eyes wide. The dark still frightened her. Isabella opened her mouth to step in, only to stop. Marcus was already there, seated at her bedside. His voice was soft, steady, telling a story about planets that never left their moons. Emily's eyes fluttered shut, her breathing slowing until sleep finally claimed her. Isabella's hand tightened on the doorframe. Her daughter hadn't fallen asleep in her arms for months. But tonight, she drifted off peacefully in his. A knot of jealousy coiled deep in Isabella's chest. She was the mother. She was the one who had given Emily everything, yet it was this stranger her daughter clung to. Days passed and Isabella's unease grew. Every laugh, every smile from her daughter seemed to belong to Marcus. The staff adored him. Even Davis avoided her gaze whenever she scolded. One evening, Isabella confronted her assistant in the study. "Where exactly did you find this man?" Her voice was clipped icy. Davis shifted uncomfortably. "Through a recommendation network, madam. He had excellent references from community centers and children's programs." "That's not enough." She leaned closer. "Dig deeper. I want his entire past." "Yes, ma'am." Within 48 hours, Davis returned with a folder. Isabella flipped it open, her heart sinking as she scanned the lines. 8 years ago. Arrest. Suspicion of child neglect. Her blood ran cold. She snapped the folder shut. All at once, the jealousy in her chest hardened into fear. A man with that stain near her daughter, and she had left Emily with him for weeks. Her fists shook as she marched down the hall. Emily's laughter drifted from the library, Marcus's baritone rumbling low in reply. Isabella pushed the door open with force. Emily looked up from the couch, a picture book on her lap. "Mommy, Marcus is teaching me the story of the lost star." Isabella's voice came out sharp. "Emily, go to your room." The girl blinked, startled. "But now." Marcus rose slowly, placing the book aside. His expression stayed calm, but his eyes were steady, unwavering. "What's this about?" Isabella stepped forward, folder in hand. "Care to explain this?" She flung it onto the coffee table, the papers spilling out. Emily hesitated at the doorway, glancing back with wide eyes. Isabella's voice snapped again. "Upstairs." Reluctantly, the child obeyed her footsteps, dragging against the carpet. Marcus picked up the papers, scanning quickly. He sighed, his shoulders sagging as if the weight was familiar. "That again?" Isabella's jaw tightened. "You're telling me it's not true." His voice was low, measured. "I took the blame for someone else. The director of the orphanage I grew up in. He was hurting kids. I was 17 and powerless. They needed someone to blame. I thought I could survive it. The record never left me." Her chest heaved, fury warring with doubt. "Do you expect me to believe that his gaze didn't waver? Believe what you want. But ask Emily who makes her feel safe." Silence thickened between them. The rain outside hammered harder against the windows, echoing the pounding of her heart. For Isabella, the line had been crossed. "I don't care what you say. You're finished here. Pack your things. Tonight." Marcus's jaw tightened, but he said nothing more. He closed the folder, slowly placed it on the table, and walked past her toward the stairs. Isabella's breath came ragged. For a fleeting second, she caught the reflection of her daughter at the landing, small hands gripping the railing, tears streaking her cheeks. "Don't make him leave," Emily whispered. Isabella turned away. She couldn't listen. Not now. The mansion felt hollow after Marcus left. His footsteps faded down the corridor, the echo swallowed by the storm outside. Emily cried herself hoarse that night, her small fists pounding against her pillow. Isabella sat alone in her study, the incriminating folders spread across the desk. She tried to read contracts, balance sheets, anything to steady her mind, but every word blurred. Her daughter's screams upstairs haunted her more than any financial risk ever had. By morning, Emily's voice was gone. She sat pale and silent at the breakfast table, pushing food away. The spark in her eyes, so recently reignited, was dim again. Isabella's chest tightened, but she hardened her voice. "You'll be fine without him." Emily didn't answer. She only pulled her hoodie tighter and turned away. That evening, a scream shattered the silence. Isabella bolted from her room to find Emily collapsed on the carpet outside the bathroom, her small body shivering violently. Isabella dropped to her knees, gathering the girl into her arms. Her skin burned hot, her lips trembling. "Call Dr. Matthews," she shouted to a guard. Panic surged through her veins. Within minutes, the doctor arrived. He checked Emily's pulse, his brow furrowed. "She's spiking a dangerous fever. We need to admit her immediately." The world spun around Isabella. The limousine rushed them through city streets, sirens wailing as the hospital lights came into view. In the emergency ward, nurses swarmed. Tubes, monitors, clipped instructions filled the air. Isabella stood frozen against the wall, powerless. A nurse turned. "We need to run a transfusion test." "Do you know her blood type?" "Yes." "O positive." Isabella's answer was automatic. She had given the information countless times before. Minutes later, the doctor returned, his expression strange. "Mrs. Carter, there's a problem. Emily's blood is B positive." Isabella blinked. The words didn't register. "No. You're mistaken. That's impossible." Her throat closed. The doctor's voice was firm. "It's certain. She cannot be O positive if you are her biological mother. We double-checked." The floor seemed to vanish beneath Isabella's feet. Her hands shook violently. "So, what are you saying?" The doctor hesitated. "Biologically, she cannot be your child." The words struck like a blade. Isabella's breath hitched, her vision swimming. She clutched the wall for support, her knees threatening to give out. Memories reeled, 5 years of lullabies, birthdays, first steps, scraped knees. Every kiss goodnight, every tear wiped away. Was it all built on a lie? She staggered into the hallway, chest heaving. "I raised someone else's child." For once, the woman who commanded empires could not command her own heart. Soft footsteps approached. She looked up. Marcus stood there, soaked from rain, his bag still slung across his shoulder. His eyes met hers, not with triumph, not with anger, but with quiet steadiness. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered. Her voice cracked. "I heard what happened." His gaze flicked toward the ward where Emily lay. "I couldn't stay away." Tears blurred Isabella's vision. "She's not mine, Marcus. The test, she's not my daughter." His voice was firm, low. "She is your daughter." Isabella shook her head violently. "The blood says otherwise. Blood doesn't tuck her in at night. Blood doesn't sit through fevers or wipe tears or give her hope when she's afraid of the dark." His words cut deep, sharp, but steady. "Love does that. And you've given her all of it." Her breath hitched, shoulders trembling. She covered her face with her hands, sobs breaking loose. For the first time in years, she was not the untouchable billionaire, not the iron-willed executive. She was just a mother terrified of losing her child. Marcus crouched before her, his voice softer now. "You've been carrying this alone too long. Let me help you." For a long moment, Isabella couldn't look at him. But then she lowered her hands, her tear-streaked face raw, vulnerable. "You still trust me after everything?" His answer was simple. "I trust Emily, and she trusts you." The girl lay pale against the sheets, her small frame hooked up to wires. Her eyelids fluttered open weakly. "Mommy." The word broke Isabella's heart all over again. She knelt beside the bed, clutching her daughter's frail hand. "I'm here, baby. I'm not going anywhere." Emily's lips curved faintly. "Where's Marcus?" Isabella glanced over her shoulder. Marcus stood in the doorway, silent. He stepped closer, his presence filling the sterile room with something steady, something human. Emily's tiny hand reached out for his. He took it gentle but sure. Isabella watched her tears falling freely. For the first time, she didn't feel threatened by his presence. She felt grateful. And in that moment, as her daughter's hand linked both of theirs, Isabella realized the truth. It didn't matter what the blood said. What mattered was who stayed. The fever broke by dawn. Emily's cheeks were still pale, but the steady rise and fall of her chest brought relief that washed through Isabella like a tide. She sat slumped in the chair beside the bed, her hair falling loose, her eyes rimmed red. She had not slept all night, but she had not left either. When Emily stirred at last, Isabella was already holding her hand. "Mommy," the girl whispered, her voice weak. "Yes, baby, I'm here." Isabella leaned down, kissing her damp forehead. A shadow moved at the doorway. Marcus. He had stayed all night silent, watchful. He had not demanded anything. He had simply been there the same way he always was. Emily's lips curved faintly. "Can you tell me a story?" Marcus stepped closer, crouching at the bedside. His deep voice filled the quiet room with images of stars, moons, and hidden constellations. Emily's eyes closed, her breathing softening into peaceful sleep. Isabella sat back staring at him. Something had shifted. The anger that once flared at the sight of him now faltered, replaced by something harder to name: gratitude, respect, maybe even trust. Over the next week, Emily grew stronger. She laughed again, nibbling at food, when Marcus turned it into another spaceship mission. Isabella joined, sometimes awkward at first, but learning. She found herself laughing quietly when oatmeal spilled across Emily's chin, when Marcus drew planets shaped like kittens just to make her giggle. It startled her how natural it felt, how unforced. One morning, Davis entered the hospital room, his face pale. Behind him was an older man in a tailored gray suit carrying a leather briefcase. Mrs. Carter Davis began cautiously, "This is Arthur Vance, counsel for the Thorne estate." Isabella's brows knit. "The Thorne estate? What does that have to do with us?" Vance cleared his throat. His eyes flicked toward Marcus, and then he spoke. "Mr. Marcus Thorne has been absent from the family empire for several years, but legally, he remains the sole heir to Thorne Financial, one of the largest private firms in the country." Isabella blinked, stunned. Her gaze whipped to Marcus. "You... what?" Marcus's jaw tightened. He looked away. Vance continued. "Your father's passing leaves the board unsettled, Marcus. They need you to step forward. The company cannot remain leaderless." Emily stirred at the sound of his name. "Marcus." Her small voice broke through the tension. He crouched beside her again, brushing her hair gently. "It's all right, Starshine. Go back to sleep." The girl's eyes drifted closed, trusting. Isabella stared, disbelief thick in her chest. "You're a billionaire's son, and you chose to live as what?" A nanny. Marcus finally met her gaze. His eyes were steady, dark with weight. "I walked away from the empire years ago. The boardroom was full of greed, not care. I wanted to be where I was needed, not where I was powerful." Her voice caught between anger and awe. "And you didn't think to mention this. What would it have changed?" His tone was quiet, almost weary. "To Emily, I'm just Marcus. That's all that matters. No, I won't return. The company will have to find someone else." Marcus Vance insisted, "This is billions of dollars. A legacy? I don't need a legacy," Marcus said sharply. "I need her." He glanced toward Emily, asleep in Isabella's arms. His voice softened. "That's my choice." Vance looked as if he might argue further, but one glance at Marcus's face silenced him. With a heavy sigh, he packed his briefcase and left. The door shut behind him. Silence returned, broken only by Emily's breathing. Isabella studied Marcus for a long moment. "You gave up an empire for her?" His reply was simple. "What's an empire worth if it leaves you alone at the top?" Her throat tightened. She had spent her life clawing her way to the top, building, climbing, conquering. But for the first time, she wondered if Marcus was right. Emily stirred, murmuring in her sleep. Marcus bent, tucking the blanket tighter. Isabella watched the way his hand lingered, gentle but certain, and she realized something that shook her more than any business revelation ever had. He belonged here. Not because of money, not because of blood, but because Emily's world lit up when he was near. Later that night, Isabella sat by the window, the city lights flickering far below. Marcus stood at the opposite side of the room, quiet. Finally, she spoke. "All these years, I thought strength meant control, owning everything. But I can't own my daughter's heart. You already have it." His eyes met hers. "She has both of us." The words hung in the air, fragile, dangerous, true. Isabella swallowed her chest tight. For years, she had defined herself by power, by wealth, by being untouchable. But tonight, sitting across from the man who had given up everything for her daughter, she wondered if maybe strength meant something else entirely. Not holding on, but choosing what really mattered. Spring sunlight spilled into the hospital garden. For the first time in weeks, Emily was allowed outside. She shuffled slowly across the grass in her sneakers, her small hand clutching Marcus's. Isabella followed a step behind, carrying a thermos of tea, her eyes never leaving her daughter. Emily tilted her face toward the sun. A breeze tugged at the edges of her hoodie, lifting strands of her hair. She smiled, a quiet, fragile thing, but real. "Feels warm," she whispered. Marcus knelt beside her. "That's because you're getting stronger starshine. You're brighter than the sun today." The little girl giggled, tucking her face against his shoulder. Isabella's heart clenched. For so long, she had thought her daughter's laughter was lost. But now, it returned, effortless, spilling like water. Back at the mansion, life shifted in subtle ways. Meals were no longer silent affairs. Emily sat between Isabella and Marcus at the long table, telling stories about her dreams. Marcus invented silly games with vegetables and silverware until Isabella found herself laughing too. At night, bedtime was no longer a battle. Isabella took the left side of the bed, Marcus the right, and Emily in the middle. Sometimes Isabella read aloud, sometimes Marcus did. More often, Emily insisted on both, two voices, weaving together until her eyes fluttered shut. For the first time in years, the mansion felt less like a museum and more like a home. One afternoon, Isabella found herself in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, watching Marcus and Emily bake cookies. Flour dusted the counters, Emily's nose, even Marcus's dark curls. "Careful with that sugar starshine," Marcus teased. Emily giggled, dumping the bowl with exaggerated drama. The white cloud rose into the air, settling on all three of them. Isabella laughed, really laughed, as Marcus shook his head, smiling, while Emily danced in triumph. It was messy. It was chaotic, and it was perfect. But beneath the laughter, Isabella felt a question growing inside her chest. What was Marcus to them now? A helper? A friend? A man who had once walked away from billions? The answer came not from her, but from Emily. It was evening. The fire crackled in the library shadows, flickering across the walls. Emily sat curled in Marcus's lap, a picture book forgotten beside them. Isabella sat nearby, sipping tea, her gaze soft. Emily tilted her head up suddenly. "Marcus, yes, starshine." Her voice was small but steady. "Can you be my dad?" Silence fell heavy and electric. Isabella's breath caught. Her teacup trembled in her hand. Marcus froze, the weight of the words sinking deep. His arms tightened around the little girl instinctively. "Emily," he said slowly, "being a dad is more than a name. It's about showing up. It's about staying. And if that's what you're asking," his voice faltered, rough with emotion, "then yes, I would be honored." Emily's face broke into a smile so wide it filled the room with light. She threw her arms around his neck, squeezing tight. Isabella's vision blurred. She set her cup aside, her hand covering her mouth as tears spilled freely. Emily looked over Marcus's shoulder, her eyes wide and earnest. "Mommy, is that okay?" Isabella's chest ached. She had fought so hard to keep control, to hold her world together with iron fists. But tonight there was nothing to fight, only to accept. She nodded through her tears. "Yes, baby. It's more than okay." With her small hands, she pulled them closer until the three of them formed a circle. Isabella on one side, Marcus on the other. Emily pressed between. The embrace was clumsy, tight, tearful, but it was whole. For the first time, Isabella felt the cold walls inside her chest crack open. She wasn't just a billionaire, a mother burdened by power and mistakes. She was simply Isabella, holding the only two people who mattered. Marcus pressed his forehead gently against hers, Emily giggling between them. "We're a family now," he whispered. The words settled into Isabella's bones, quiet and true. Weeks later, on a hill just outside the city, they flew a red kite, the same one Emily had begged for months ago. She ran across the grass, the string taut in her hands, her laughter ringing through the open air. Marcus ran a few steps behind, steadying her when she stumbled. Isabella stood at the crest of the hill, watching the kite climb higher and higher against the pale sky. "It's not falling." Emily shouted, joy spilling from her voice. "Neither are you," Marcus called back. Isabella felt the wind tug at her hair, the sunlight warming her face. She looked at them, her daughter, her partner, her family. No one said the word family, but it was there, woven into every laugh, every tear, every hand they held together. And for Isabella Carter, billionaire businesswoman mother, it was the only title that truly mattered.